Hello and welcome to the Imaging Wire Show. My name is Brian Casey and I'm managing editor of the Imaging Wire. Got a great episode for you today. Our topic is implementing radiology AI with the NHS Diagnostic Fund. The Diagnostic Fund is a proactive approach to addressing healthcare challenges in the UK by leveraging AI to potentially save lives and improve patient outcomes. The fund's goal is to equip NHS facilities with cutting-edge AI-powered technology to improve efficiency and accuracy of diagnosing conditions like lung cancer. The NHS announced the Diagnostic Fund in June and said it would release £21 million or $27 million to fund the deployment of AI tools across NHS trusts this winter. In this Imaging Wire show, we'll be discussing the fund, how NHS facilities can apply for it, and some success stories with AI in the NHS, and then finally how technologies like AI have the potential to revolutionize healthcare. Our guests are Dr. Sarim Ather, Radiology AI Lead for Oxford University Hospitals, Dr. Rydian Bramley, a consultant radiologist with the Christie NHS Foundation Trust and Diagnostics Lead for the Greater Manchester Cancer Alliance, and Rohit Ghosh, founding member and Chief Commercial Officer at AI developer Cure AI. Everybody, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Brian, for having me here.
Thank you, Brian.
So let's start with introductions. Dr. Ather, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, I'm a consultant radiologist working in Oxford and the digital and AI lead for the trust. I'm also leading the application for the AI development fund for our imaging network.
Okay, very good. Dr. Bramley?
Yes, I'm also a consultant radiologist. I work at the Christie Hospital, which is one of the leading cancer centres in Europe, and I have a role working with the Cancer Alliance, which works across a larger area, looking at improving the flow of patients between hospitals, getting early diagnosis and improving patient outcomes. I'm also leading on our local AI Diagnostic Fund project application.
Very good. And Rohit?
No, thanks a lot, Brian, again. So Rohit here, I'm one of the founding members and the Chief Commercial Officer at Cure.ai. So we founded Cure almost 7 years back with the idea of making healthcare more accessible and affordable. And lo and behold, here we are 7 years later. We are almost in 80 plus countries and helping 4 million patients every year. So that's about me and Cure.
Very good. So let's start by talking a little bit about the NHS. The NHS has been making really significant investments in AI in just the last year and especially the last few months. Dr. Bramley, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges faced by NHS trusts and maybe why they're turning to AI?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I think the main challenges at the moment in the NHS faced by trusts and radiology departments are really a mixture of both financial and workforce pressures combined with ever-increasing demand for imaging. So we have a national shortfall in both the radiographers acquiring the images and the radiologists who primarily report them. So this combination of pressures on staff with the increasing demand is resulting in lengthening waiting lists and also large backlogs of imaging to be reported in some trusts. So where AI comes in is in this context of having a backlog of, for example, chest x-rays to report. AI can help by prioritizing the abnormal cases in the backlog, effectively bringing them to the front of the queue. So this can improve the efficiency of turnaround of the abnormal scans whilst using the same staffing resources and using your existing workflows. That's why it's an attractive option.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Bramley. Dr. Ather, are you seeing a similar situation where we're at your facility?
Absolutely. The shortages of radiologists is nationwide across the country. And we've had a lot of investment into scanning equipment recently, which has increased our scanning capacity. We're developing community diagnostic hubs so we can scan patients away from the hospitals. But these scans need to be looked at by reporters, and we haven't had the same expansion, which is exacerbated and will continue to exacerbate the shortfall of radiologists that we have. And hopefully, we're hoping that the AI can plug some of that gap by helping speed up interpretation and also point out areas where scans need to be reported faster.
Okay. So Dr. Arthur, a follow-up question. So for treatment planning, physicians wait for imaging reports to come in, which most times can take a lot of time unless there's really like an obvious finding. How can AI improve this for better care outcomes?
So within the NHS, we have quite good availability of accessibility for imaging from a clinic. So we have digital PAC systems across the country. Clinicians can see the images themselves. If we can integrate AI into clinical PAC systems as well, then the clinicians not only will have access to the imaging, but they'll also have access to the AI interpretation of the imaging, and that they can, along with with their own expertise, they can then make a decision on whether something needs to be done about that patient. So, for example, if AI picks out an abnormality like cancer, they can act on that finding and refer the patient on for the subsequent scan or a discussion in a multidisciplinary team meeting. The other thing where AI can help, and it's helping already, is around actual treatment planning for things like radiotherapy, where users or clinicians are required to demarcate normal organs, abnormalities such as tumors, and they have to do it by hand. And being able to segment that automatically can accelerate what needs to be done, and save radiologists or radiographers time. Lastly, a lot of quantitative imaging that we do is inconsistent because humans aren't very good at measuring the same thing twice. So it brings in a lot of user variability. But also it's a time-consuming and tedious process. So that's another thing that AI can help with.
Very good. So Rohit, we're hearing from Dr. Bramley and Dr. Arthur that workforce shortages in radiology in the NHS are critical. How, as an AI company, has Cure dealt with backlogs related to like reporting challenges and things like that? How does that shape your product development?
Actually, this starts all the way back from 2019. So 2019, I met this pre-COVID, I met one of the NHS trusts in the country, and they said they had 50,000 backlogs that were not reported in a year. And you would think how is that happening, right? But I think as Radian and Sarin both alluded to the fact that there's just a lot of imaging that's there in the country and there's just not enough radiologists. So that's when we realized that there's a potential for AI to come in there. And the chest x-rays, right? That's where we sort of saw this huge number of backlogs, where a lot of it. You realize that a good percentage of them tends to be completely normal, or as you would say in radiology, without any significant findings. So we started thinking, can we build an AI which can sort of take out those normal scans, put them in a separate work list, and the abnormal scans sort of can be in a separate work list, which then you can, what it does is it sort of creates easy, quicker reporting for the normal scans. And the abnormal scans are also triaged so that you can look at them quicker. So if it's a lung cancer patient, then you can actually look at the lung cancer right then and there before the patient actually leaves the hospital premises. So you have done the triaging, so you catch things like lung cancer much early. Whereas if it's a normal, you can actually report them much quicker. In fact, in Frimley, which is one of the other NHS trusts, Dr. Amrita Kumar found that almost 58% efficiencies reported on backlogs when she used AI. And that's actually something we also found in another trust in NHS East Kent. When they tried using AI, what they did was very different. So what Dr. Amrita did with Frimley was sort of trying to see backlogs and seeing if AI can actually help them report quicker and faster. And she found there's almost a 2-minute arbitrage using it. But in East Kent, what they did was they looked at emergency room physicians, right, who are potentially downstream customers of radiology. And they said that obviously there's a lack of radiologists reporting the scans. So can we have at least emergency physicians look at the prelim report that is generated by AI and at least act upon that quickly? As Sarin mentioned, right, a lot of times physicians have access to PACS. So can they do it? And they found it in a real use case in sort of being able to act on that quickly using AI. So I think in those sense, AI has been able to help with backlogs, whether it's prioritization or just taking care of efficiency.
That's very good. Dr. Bramley, you've been working with the AI for a while now. How do you see it benefiting workflow and the patient care pathway?
Yeah, so I work with the Cancer Alliance, so we've been focusing a lot looking at the lung cancer pathway. So we've been piloting chest X-ray AI for a while now, and that is across the whole of the Manchester integrated care systems. That's a population of about 3 million patients. And we've been working very closely with radiology departments and lead lung cancer clinicians on the cancer pathway. So the key benefits we are identified up front for this project are around what we call both earlier diagnosis and faster diagnosis of lung cancer. To explain those then, earlier diagnosis is really the potential for AI decision support to help pick up cancers earlier. So this is potentially small cancers on chest X-rays that reporters might miss, either because they're working late, they're tired, or possibly less experienced reporters who are less experienced at detecting abnormalities. So we're looking to see if we can pick these up earlier. This earlier diagnosis then can potentially save months of a patient's pathway, because if they miss something, it's often a long time before they get referred back for another X-ray. The other element is faster diagnosis. This is around the prioritization I mentioned, where we can put abnormal cases to the front of the queue. This saves more days off the pathway, but it can have a larger impact on a greater number of patients. So these are both really important, because in diseases like lung cancer, even saving days in the pathway can make a significant difference to outcomes. So studies such as the Lung Boost trial that we've done has shown that saving, for example, 2 weeks off the diagnostic pathway at this stage can give patients on average an extra 6 months of life. So that's an equivalent benefit to some regimens of toxic chemotherapy. And as you can imagine, far more preferable, as you can imagine, for our patients to do it this way.
Yeah, and that's a really measurable impact. Dr. Ather, let's talk a little bit about the role of safety and the validation of AI. When adopting AI, what's necessary from a safety and security standpoint? At Thames Valley, you've already started implementing AI, in a safe fashion. What's involved in that?
There's several aspects. I think there is the pre-deployment validation. So as a clinician, I'd want to know that the AI has been tested properly. It's relevant to my patient population and the pathologies that I'm looking at and my patient pathways, and that it adds value in my patient pathway. So I'd want to having peer-reviewed publications around the efficacy of the tool, around sensitivity and specificity, but also around what benefit is it adding. And the Lung Boost trial, for example, is a perfect example of how to capture that value. Because I think in terms of AI adoption, that is a big question mark. What is the return on investment? If as a hospitalized, I invest money in AI tools, what benefit are we going to derive? Then post-deployment as well, I want to make sure that the tool is performing as it intended. So if in a peer-reviewed publication, it showed 99% accuracy, is it performing at the same level in my population, on my scanners? If a scanner changes, is it going to perform at the same level? So those are the two main elements of efficacy that I'd want to be interested in. There are also things around safety, so making sure that there's no data leakages, patient privacy is maintained, patients have the choice of opting out.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about success stories. Dr. Bramley, you mentioned a success story a little bit earlier in the application of AI. Any other success stories that you've seen that show how important AI has been in the provision of quality healthcare?
Well, picking up on Dr. Ather's point, it is difficult implementing AI within the NHS, and particularly at scale. So one of the main barriers to successful AI implementation is to deploy it safely and securely. Okay, so this requires overcoming a whole host of regulatory hurdles, such as DPIAs, as we call them, which are data protection impact assessments, DTACs, digital technology assessment criteria assessments that have been done, and also completing the clinical safety cases at sign-off and validation. So one of the key outcomes of our project to begin with was, can we deploy AI safely at scale and within a reasonable time frame? So that has been a big success for us, and it's been vastly simplified in the process that we've done it. So we have deployed it via a AI integration platform integrated with our PACS. So as the platform has already been technically assured, we have those assessments already in place, which meant that we could get up and running relatively quickly and start the process of running in shadow mode, which is where the AI is running in the background, and we can check how it's performing effectively, what abnormalities it's picking up, how often, and then start to work through the safety aspects of what clinicians would expect to see. How often is it likely to flag abnormalities? And that whole human factors element of situational awareness of when you see something, it's an extra piece of information for a clinician that they are not used to seeing before. As clinicians, we are constantly provided with different sorts of information coming to us. Some of it's contradictory and we have to come up with a diagnosis. For many clinicians and radiologists, this is new, so we need to assess and take time to practice and work out how much to rely on the AI, because there are, of course, risks potentially of false positives and false negatives, and we want to make sure that our reporters and clinicians are fully aware and giving it the right level of trust and awareness, and knowing when potentially to override and when to be nudged in the right direction from the AI. All that takes experience, and it's an iterative process of information. I think that's probably the key factor that we were trying to get in our initial deployment to enable us to move the next stage, which is mainly around the patient benefit.
Yeah. Rohit, at Cure, what sort of success stories have you seen among your customers, and what are some key points that you've seen from implementations that are important to make sure that it's that AI is implemented safely and effectively?
I think Radian already spoke about the success, so I think that's definitely one of the major successes that we have already had in UK. But if outside that, I think thinking about it, I think there are two pieces from where I see, and just not in UK, if I look at globally, two major things that sort of drives success in an AI implementation. So the first is the tech integration, which I think both Sarim and Radian talked about. How can you get it live and running in a way that is actually, it just doesn't intrude into your reading, right? I mean, if you're a radiologist reporting, you just don't open up scans and then suddenly see a bunch of this, new scans coming up with all these markings on it. So that's a bad experience. So ideally, how can you get that in a nice, seamless workflow where you don't have to click on a separate widget or a separate browser, but in your workflow? And how would you get that running quick? I think that whole shadow mode that Radian mentioned, that was a prime example of, how you can get that running without intrusion of privacy, or just intrusion and just giving a lot of information. But we'll also get that started, I think, within less than 2-3 months, right? So I think that's a really quick timeline to get things. So that's one, the integration, how can we make that seamless? The second bit is just how do you train people to actually understand AI? I think, again, the whole idea Radian mentioned about false positives, no AI, mind you, is 100% accurate. Not even anything that Cure builds, no one else. So there's always going to be false positives, there's always going to be false negatives. How do you make an user understand where those potential fallacies could lie of the AI? That's when not to trust AI and when to trust AI, right? I think that is a thing that you learn. I think we learned as a company where, that's the thing where not only the experience goes really bad, you don't understand that right up, and then sort of educating that across the board. So I think those, for me, are the two major things where we do a lot of work. Firstly, on the first part of thing, we work with a lot of partners, right? Whether it's PACS or risk companies, to make sure that the workflow is really tight. And it took a lot of effort to do that. It takes a lot of engineering effort to do that, to get that right. The second is we just have dedicated team members sort of onboarding teams as they go live, to make sure that they understand the process, they understand how the AI works, and be there with them throughout the process, right? Because it's very easy to get just dismantled with so much information. So yeah, that's a bit where we do a lot of work.
Perfect. Dr. Ather, any other success stories that you'd like to share from your facility?
I think before I do that, I'd like to build on Rohit's point, educating the clinician about AI. I think there's a lot of skepticism amongst users around AI. It partly born from some of the comments which early AI developers made, like radiologists are going to replace in 5 years' time. So as soon as they see AI not working, they'd latch onto that and say, well, it doesn't work. So actually educating how AI helps clinicians or radiologists is really, really important. And also educating them on when to be wary of AI outputs is also very important. So I think that's something that Cure say they understand, but I think it needs to be rolled out across any implementation of AI. In terms of success stories, I think majority have been around operational efficiencies with automatic contouring. I think going forward, where I see the potential of AI really is going to be around predictive analytics. So as radiologists, we can the imaging, we can interpret it, but it's very hard for us to know what a scan might mean, or information that we can't see on the scan necessarily. But there is information there which might predict what might happen with the patient in the future. So, with a normal scan, can you predict a risk of patient developing lung cancer in the future? And integrating big data with imaging data is where AI will really provide extra value.
Perfect. So let's shift over and talk about the Diagnostic Fund itself. The NHS announced this on June 23rd. They said that trusts will be able to bid for funding to accelerate the deployment of the most promising AI tools. The government is committing to deploying AI decision support tools in all stroke networks by the end of 2023. But it sounds like this particular fund is really focused on chest X-ray by saying the Diagnostic Fund will include the use of AI tools to analyze chest X-rays, the most common tool used to diagnose lung cancer. Dr. Bramley, can you talk a little bit about the fund itself and what people should do to maybe know about it and to kind of get their ducks in a row to apply for something?
Yeah, so this fund has been announced. It's relatively short notice, as you say, £21 million, and the key objective is trying to reduce backlogs within the NHS. As you say, they have focused on chest X-ray because there are a number of products on the market and growing evidence that this could be successful and help address some of those backlogs by improving times to diagnosis. So we've been working, we're building up a bid for that. Now, the bid process is that it has to come through what we call imaging networks. There are a limited number of imaging networks. There's 22 across the whole of the country. So that means that trusts wanting to implement this do have to collaborate and work together to come up with a single joint bid for the imaging network. And we think that's a good thing. It's what the college recommended. And this is what I'm sure Dr. Arthur and myself are doing at the moment, is working between trusts to bring everybody together on a joint proposal.
Perfect.
Rohit, as a vendor in this space, how do you view the funding announcement by the NHS? Is this, my guess is this is something that's positive, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, I can tell you one interesting story. So this is 2019. I meet this RSNA and I meet one of the imaging, let's say AI company and their CEO, and he goes like, please don't bother into going into NHS because NHS is this whole mesh of bureaucracy. So that's going to take up all your time. So as an AI company, I suggest avoid going to UK as a market just because it's just never you're going to be anywhere in that. And we are like, I don't think so, because I think we saw the problem and we told you about the backlog problem. And we were like, no, we really think UK can be where there's a real use case of it, and we want to really focus efforts there. And today I really feel vindicated by the fact that we actually have this funding available, because I think I've heard over years and years that UK and NHS is this bureaucratic mess, and we just no innovation actually gets to see the light of the day. And I genuinely think with this announcement, there's a lot of talk about AI and everyone's talking about AI and how to go about it. But I think with this funding, I genuinely think that there's finally answer that's going to be answered, that a complete nation actually using AI at a significant level to show the rest of the world that how AI is to be used. And I think nothing comes more solid than actually putting funding to where your mouth is. And I think UK, after come next year, January to next year, March, UK is actually going to show the world how AI is actually done. And I'm actually great. I mean, how we come across and what we can support, we are always there to support all the trusts with evidence or with business use cases if need be. But I think it's just a great positive thing to come from UK.
Well, yeah, and the advantage that the NHS has over, a health system like the U.S. is that it is so unified and integrated, and when the NHS puts its mind to do something, it can really get something done and make that relevant to everybody, patients throughout the country. So, Dr. Ather, any advice that you've got for facilities that are thinking about applying for this fund?
Yes, so each of the participating trusts will have from their CEO, CFO, and Clinical Information Officer, Chief Clinical Information Officer to be part of the bid. And with this being summer holidays, we better get that in quick.
Okay, great advice. So for more, if you want to get more information about the fund, I'm going to try to share a screen here that hopefully will have a little bit of information. It is, the URL is transform.england.nhs.uk. And then what you need to do is search on Diagnostic Fund, and this page will come up, and it'll have the information that facilities will need to apply for the fund. Dr. Bramley, Dr. Ather, do you know, is there a deadline for when facilities need to apply for this? Dr. Bramley, I think you mentioned it was a pretty short timeline.
Yes, the deadline for submissions is the 4th of September.
Oh boy.
And projects have to be commence implementation by in December. A very short time frames to get all this in, approvals, and the framework also involves purchasing through a mini competition through a specific framework that's been set up for this purpose.
Okay, perfect.
All that has to be completed between now and December. No
Okay.
small task.
Well, NHS is moving quickly, so that's good, right?
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, well, we're drawing to a close. I'd like to give everybody a chance to make some closing thoughts, advice both on the Diagnostic Fund and maybe on the use of AI more broadly, and maybe if some folks don't make the deadline and they're not using AI yet, maybe how they should proceed. Dr. Bramley, could you give us a few closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, AI has great potential benefits. Our experience is you need to take the clinicians and radiologists and radiographers with you on the journey. This is new to them. They will have concerns and risks, and you have to work through those with them. We've been using it for 6 months, over 250,000 X-rays done, and we've had no patient harm or incidents. So we can certainly provide a vote of assurance from our use of it. And I would just encourage everyone to get involved. Good project management is always important for any of these projects as you roll out. Keep positive, make the meetings fun, and involve all the stakeholders as you go along, and you should have a successful project, hopefully.
Very good. Dr. Ather, any closing thoughts from you? Any advice for facilities thinking about either applying for the Diagnostic Fund or implementing AI afterward?
I think what I would advise both clinical facilities as well as vendors is to make sure any deployment has evaluation built in, because you want to capture any benefit that the AI is providing. And then particularly the Diagnostic Fund, it comes from for a limited period of time, for 2 years. And what you want to be able to do is at the end of the 2 years, say, these are the benefits that we gain from using AI, and now it should become part of business as usual.
Very good. Rohit, from the Cure perspective, what sort of advice would you have for facilities, either in the UK or, internationally, that are thinking about adopting AI?
So if you're in UK, I think there's not been a better time in UK to adopt AI. And I think this is the moment you have, I think, till 4th September. I think all of us are really encouraging you to support. If you're a radiologist who wants to use AI in UK and you're hearing this, please try your best. And Cure is there to support you with the entire process, whether it's your business use case to getting some of the documents you're working with different trusts across the country. So we can definitely help you with that. So just you need to get your team together, and if you're in UK, we'll help. If you're outside UK, there's definitely a way you can reach out on our website. Just try the demo and just book a demo with us, and we'll reach out and make sure you get to use AI. We'll always support you. But if you're in UK, definitely this is the moment, go for it.
Very good. Well, great parting words. I'd like to thank everybody for being with us today. Dr. Ridiam Bramley, Dr. Sareem Ather, and Rohit Ghosh from Cure AI. I really enjoyed the discussion, and thanks everybody for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks.
Signing off for the Imaging Wire, my name is Brian Casey.